Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Level Up Your Mental. My name is Ariel, and I'm a licensed mental health counselor. Today, I wanted to talk about depression, and specifically high-functioning depression, which is not an actual diagnosis in the DSM, but it is a term that a lot of people are using now just to describe their symptoms and how they're dealing with depression. So I have Michelle Williams on the screen because back in 2021, she spoke about her struggles with depression, how she wasn't diagnosed early, how she was, kind of living through it through her her time during Destiny's Child, and basically coming out with this book and going through her depression and what saved her life and what people can do if they're experiencing the same thing, right? And so I wanted to use her because I think sometimes people tend to forget that, or maybe they don't forget, but I think sometimes people can be a little bit judgmental or just a little bit mean when it comes to celebrities and their mental health. People think that because celebrities have money that they shouldn't have mental health problems, or that they can get over their mental health problems quickly, and that's not how it works. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean that mental health affects you in a different way than it would somebody else. I believe with having the money, yes, of course, they have maybe a little bit more resources, being able to access more help, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they feel comfortable going to even get the help. Their life is already put in the spotlight, and then they get ridiculed and criticized for every little thing that they do, and then to come out and say that you have depression, which a lot of people tend to associate depression with materialistic things, and for a lot of people that doesn't exactly make them happy. And I think a lot of times for celebrities and for people that aren't celebrities, it's hard for them to understand that even though they have everything that they've probably ever wanted and they have money in the bank, it doesn't necessarily equate to them being happy and having a happy life. I haven't read Michelle's book for myself, but I did go through some research as far as online and listen to a lot of her interviews and got a little bit more background information for her about how she dealt with depression and why it took so long for her to get the help that she needed, right? So if a lot of people don't know, Michelle Williams is from Destiny's Child, and she fought with a lot of symptoms of depression but didn't know exactly what it was. For those people that don't know who Michelle Williams is, she was born and raised in Rockford, Illinois, and she found her voice in church. She was part of a church choir. Her family was very religious, and she went to school at Illinois State University, majoring in criminal justice, and then she took a leap of faith towards her passion for music. She landed her first professional job when it came to music as a background vocalist for Monica, the R&B singer. And it was kind of there where she started getting introduced to Beyonce and Kelly, and they were looking for a new member for their group. And so that's kind of what happened. She kind of rose to her fame through Destiny's Child back in the early 2000s. Her, Beyonce, Michelle, and Kelly, really blew up in the 2000s. They made a lot of music, and, they became to, get a lot of awards and things like that. But at some point in the 2000s, they ended up splitting up, and everybody kind of went their own way and started to become solo artists. And Michelle, started to write her own singles. She became really dug deep into her faith and, has won a lot of awards. So when doing the research or just looking into her story, she did not exactly know what was wrong. She just knew that she had a lot of symptoms and it didn't feel normal for her. She said that she thought that she was tired, but she didn't know that it was depression. And I think this is a big thing for some people, and I'm not saying that being extremely tired is the only symptom that would say that you have depression, but it is a big factor of depression. If you are constantly tired, even if you get a good amount of sleep, you could still be tired because of everything that is going on. And that could also equate to health issues, and that's why they say don't completely rule it out. You can go to a doctor and actually figure out, is it actually something health related, or is it something on the mental health side where I probably need some medication and get some therapy to be able to stabilize myself and to get to a point where I can actually function, right? So with Michelle's case, she kind of went through her whole entire Destiny's Child career with going through these symptoms, but still able to show up for her job and do everything that she was supposed to do. She says that her depression wasn't caused by being in the music industry, which I've seen a lot of people that are in the music industry, in the spotlight, celebrities. A lot of times, some of them will say that, yeah, being in that spotlight and being under a microscope and having to go through all those things in front of all these people will tend to cause them a lot of mental health issues. But in Michelle's case, she said no, she actually had something going on in her life ever since she was in the 7th grade, and it just never was, addressed. And that's not something that is, profound, because I think that there are a lot of people that are just not educated in mental health or psychology, or just dealing with the mental health aspect of everything. There are a lot of people, like especially with the Caribbean background, that don't really equate those things to, yeah, you should go see a doctor. It's more so, okay, pray about it, it'll go away, or finding other ways to kind of deal with it, or just ignoring it and acting like it didn't happen, or hiding it because they don't want to be embarrassed by others. So I'm not shocked that she didn't know when she was younger, or her family didn't really address it. She said that she wasn't even diagnosed till she was in her 30s. So can you imagine going through 20 years of your life and having symptoms but not actually being able to diagnose it? I mean, that's hard to deal with alone. And just having to manage that, but then on top of that, being criticized and people seeing your whole entire life on TV and what that does for you, I think that was a big thing for her. And she did say that she did have suicidal thoughts, and she did have a point where she did almost, attempt, because of everything that she was going on. She said there was moments that she just wanted to stay in bed, but she would use the excuse of like, I'm just tired, I've been working too much. That was like her reasoning for everything. She did not know that it was depression. She also spoke about the fact that when she finally, these symptoms were starting to become very big and it was starting to become challenging for her, she told her manager about her symptoms. And instead of them taking that information and being like, oh, okay, let's go get help or whatever the case may be, they decided to tell her to focus on the good things that are happening in her life right now. You guys are going on tour, you're getting all these big deals, you guys are one of the best groups that are out right now. And I think that was a big part that I really like that she emphasized, because I think that's what tends to happen in general. A lot of times people don't understand that even though they see from the outside that everything is going right in somebody's life, they think that they have everything going on, and it's kind of like, well, what do you have to be sad about? You have everything going on. Why would you be depressed? What is it that you're sad about? Or they'll try and say, forget about being sad or dealing with that stuff. Focus on the good things that are happening in your life. But the problem is, when you suppress those feelings and try to act like you're actually happy when you're sad, those things are going to come up in other areas. And a lot of times, you're basically going to walk around with a mask on, and that's exhausting. I'm not going to show people that I am struggling right now, or I'm sad, or whatever I'm dealing with. I would rather just show the positive, because that is what shows up. And it also tells people that I have nothing to be worried about, because I have money, I have the fame, I have everything else going for me. So what is there to be sad about? But I think this is the big part that people don't understand. And like I've said before, is that you could have all the money in the world and access to every single thing, but if you, to your core, are not essentially happy about the way that your life is, or the things that you're dealing with, or things that you didn't address previously, it's going to continue to hurt you. A lot of times what I try to tell people is that you may think that you're fine, but your body knows when you are suppressing something. Your body knows when you're struggling with something. Your body knows when you are having stress, when you're having anxiety. We tend to try to push things in the back and play the funk and wear a mask and pretend that we're happy. But at the end of the day, your body knows what you're going through. And that's why I've said before that even though if you don't address something because you think that you're doing fine, your body will show it up in different circumstances or different symptoms. You know, a lot of times I'll hear from people like, my stomach hurts and I don't know why. I'm having a lot of headaches and I don't know why. I'm really, really tired and I don't know why. Like, these are a lot of times symptoms to depression. I think a lot of times people also don't want to accept the fact that they might have it, because they're kind of like, well, what do I have to be depressed about? Like I've said before, I have my family around, I have everything going around, but sometimes it could be the small things. Maybe the career that you thought you would be happy in, you're not exactly happy in. And a lot of times what I see in that area is that people will try to stay in places that they're not happy in because they're worried about the judgment from others, or how that's gonna show them, or how they are going to be perceived to other people, instead of truly just wanting to be happy for themselves. Like, I know for myself in the past, you know, I worried about people's opinions. That's just how it is. When you're younger, when you're a teenager, you're worried about how you look, what people think. There does come a certain point in your life where you, and this doesn't happen with everyone, where you tend to grow up and you really just don't care what people think, because at the end of the day, it's really your life and what makes you happy. But what comes with that is you are going to get judgment from other people. You're going to get pushback because a lot of times they don't understand your choices. But I try to tell people too that it's not up to them to understand your choices. It's your life. You have to do what makes you happy. As long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting anybody else, I don't see what the problem is in doing something that's going to make you happy. And a lot of times I tend to see this in areas where kids will follow in their parents' path because it's what their parents want, and then later on down the line they're trying to figure out why they're not happy and stressed out and things like that, when originally this isn't something that they wanted to do. It was their parent or whomever was kind of pushing this onto them to tell them to carry the legacy, and you know, things like that. And I'm not saying that's a circumstance for everything, but that is something that I usually tend to see. And I think sometimes it's just a lot of people don't want to hurt their family's feelings, but I think at the end of the day, you're really honestly hurting yourself more if you choose to stay in a situation that you know is not fulfilling you. It's the same thing like being in marriages and you guys have been together for 10 plus years and the past 2 years have been horrible, but because you've been together for 10 plus years and you have kids and you have families and you know, you guys have stipulations in your family if you're religious or you come from different cultures, it's kind of like you're not supposed to get a divorce, you're not supposed to split up, which I can understand. But I do think that we're in a different day and age where you have to do what's best for you and not based off what your family and your friends thinks is best for you, because they don't know your life and they don't know what truly makes you happy. I try to tell people all the time that yeah, you can have a closest relationship with someone, but a lot of times people don't know every single thing about you. Your family and your friends don't know every single thing about you. They're not with you all the time. So you know what's best for you. So why let other people tell you what to do and you know, instead of doing what's best for you and making yourself happy. So I think when it comes back to Michelle's situation, she didn't know how to deal with it, didn't know what it was. She didn't have people around her to tell her, hey, yeah, go get some help, you know, take a time out, take a sabbatical, do what you need to do. She kind of just kept working. She said in one of her interviews that she would see herself in the pit trying to get out, you know, feeling so heavy, and then she would take one step to try and make some progress, and then it would pull her back down. The weight from the situation felt more comfortable than healing. And, you know, I think that is a circumstance for a lot of people. They would rather be in their situation, even though the situation is stressful for them, even though they complain about it all the time, even though they don't want to be in it. Subconsciously, they kind of want to, because going through the process of healing and changing the situation is harder for them than to actually just sit in it and just deal with it. And that's a lot to carry. And that's something that you as your own self might not even notice. And that's why I think sometimes I try to tell people that sometimes you need that neutral party, that outside person to tell you what's up, because a lot of times your family and friends coddle you. They don't want to mess up that relationship with you, and they will sit there and tell you what you want to hear instead of actually telling you what the truth is. And a lot of times I try to tell people is that you're hurting the person more than you're helping them. You can't keep coddling people, especially when you start to become an adult and you're having kids. You have to be able to take accountability and see the things that are affecting you. If you are somebody that is in a situation that is constantly stressing you out and you have other ways of getting out of it, but you keep making excuses, do you actually really want to get out of the situation? Because I feel like if you have other options, yes, it might be hard, but if you're not even considering it, and every single time somebody brings up those other options, you're completely shutting them down or you're making excuses, then I don't feel like it's, I don't want to say right, I don't feel like it's fair for you to keep complaining every day about your situation or to people when you have other options. And I'm not saying that those options are easy, but nothing in life is easy. Nothing worth it comes easy. And I think that that's the issue, especially now, especially with the generation that we are seeing that's getting older, is that everything is instantaneous. Everything is like, oh, I can look it up on my phone. Oh, I can do this, I can do that. It's gonna come instantly. I got Amazon, can get things in 2 days. That nobody wants to sit and take the time to process anything. It's kind of like, oh, all right, I gotten over it, I'm good. Like, did you actually get over it? Did you actually talk about it? Did you see where this thing is coming from, why it happened, how it affected you, and what you need to do moving forward? A lot of times I think people tend to brush things and put it under the rug and just say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But it really is that big of a deal, because it's not only affecting you, it's affecting the people around you. It's affecting your relationships. And a lot of times we tend to be naive and be oblivious because, again, it's a little bit easier to deal with that than to actually take some accountability or address these hard things. But we are not doing ourselves of service. We are not benefiting ourselves by continuing to stay in a situation that is only going to, make us more upset or get us to the point that we have a breakdown, or get us to the point like Michelle did, where she basically had to be like, yeah, I need to check myself in. I can't do this anymore. And she did say that she was worried about who would be in that treatment center, if people would be taking pictures of her. But she said also at that point, I needed help and I needed to address these things. And I think sometimes people are worried about how other people are going to take them if they acknowledge that they have something going on. But at the end of the day, it's your life. And I think you have to get over that point of worrying about what other people think. So I like the fact that Michelle was able to talk about what she was going through. She was able to be real about it and talk about it in this book and really just give people the hard truth and the facts. And I think that that has opened eyes for a lot of people. And she continues to, use her platform to raise awareness about depression and also normalizing mental health discussions, especially in the faith and Black communities, which I think really needs to be emphasized. High functioning depression is not an actual thing that is diagnosable. Depression is major depression, persistent depression, yes, but high functioning depression is not an actual diagnosis. It is a term that people have been using to let people know that, yes, I have depression, however, I can still do the daily things that I need to do in my life. I can go to work, I can maintain relationships, I can do my responsibilities. So people with high functioning depression, when it comes to what symptoms you'll usually see, is there's a lot of low mood. When it comes to the low mood part, they really don't have the energy to do much things. They'll go out with people, but then kind of want to go back home, right? They have a lot of the depressive symptoms, but they're still able to function. And that's why I say a lot of times when it comes to the depression part and high functioning depression in general, people don't know that they have it because they think that, okay, I'm able to go to work, I get up and I get dressed, I eat my food, I have all these responsibilities that I'm still doing, I'm just tired, right? So I think sometimes people tend to just kind of bypass it because they're like, no, I'm doing fine. If I had depression, then I wouldn't be taking care of myself. But the truth about it is, even with high functioning depression, you might struggle to keep up with daily tasks. A lot of times those tasks are normal for everybody else, but it seems like such a big task for you. So in the instance of symptoms, when it comes to depression or just high functioning depression, right, they'll feel sad, they'll feel helpless, they'll feel hopeless. They're not interested, and these are just symptoms of just depression in general. And these are symptoms that people with high functioning depression can have, but don't necessarily have all of them. And this is kind of what they classify as high functioning depression. So they feel sad, they feel helpless, they feel hopeless. They become disinterested in a lot of things that used to bring them joy. They change in eating habits, like they're either eating too much or eating too little. They're having trouble with sleeping, or they're sleeping too much. They have difficulty concentrating. They start to have negative thoughts about themselves or others. So, and again, with depression, sometimes you don't have all these things. Sometimes you're able to take care of yourself, but you're constantly tired, and you can't sleep, and you have negative thoughts, or you're eating too much, and you're sleeping too much, and you're having difficulty concentrating on things. So that's why I say it's important to go and figure out what you have, because then you can kind of figure out what services you need and what is it done. Because a lot of people, a lot of times, they'll just get medication, and that's enough for them to at least stabilize and do what they need to do, and then they can actually be able to figure out, okay, what is it that was making me have these symptoms? Or some people, they need both. They need the medication and they need the therapy to be able to build the tools to make sure that they don't go through this slump again, or that they are able to have the coping skills to kind of manage things and it doesn't affect them to the point that they have depression on a constant basis. So in regards to the difference between major depression and high functioning depression, people who have major depressive or major depression, they have trouble taking care of things in their life that need attention. A lot of times what I've seen with people who have depression, sometimes they're not taking a shower, they're not eating. People who have really major depression, when you talk to them, they don't really have a response for things. I don't know, their mood is completely flat. They're just not here. Like, they're physically here, but they're not here. But people with high functioning depression is usually people who are able to keep up with those responsibilities, right? They are able to show up in spaces like this photo where people see them coming and they're able to enjoy and have fun. But then when they get home, they're sad, they don't know what to do, they have a lot of emotions, they're not taking care of themselves. People who are living with the high functioning depression, they are able to keep a job, they're able to be a parent, they're able to take care of their home, they can pay their bills, which is sometimes challenging for people who have depression. They get to a point where it's kind of like, what's the point? You forget about your bills. A lot of times when I've seen parents who have depression, their kids will see it. They will have days where they are just on the couch for hours and they don't respond to things. They're not making food, they're not taking care of laundry. Things start to pile up, and when they pile up like that, you really don't want to do it, because it's just even more of a growing task than it was before. And when it comes to the causes of depression, that could be from several things. You could be depressed about a big thing in life, like you lost your job, you lost someone in your life, you've had a major change. Sometimes I've seen depression where people will move away from family and they're by themselves, and that makes them depressed. Sometimes medication can make you depressed. A lot of times, maybe even traumatic life experiences that you've been through can make you depressed. Sometimes even the lifestyle that you grow up in, your household, can make you depressed. I think sometimes we tend to forget the little things that can affect you, and if they keep building and building, how that can affect your lifestyle just in general. So there is a little bit of a difference when it comes to major depression and high functioning depression, but at the end of the day, both of them have to do with how it affects your mood and how it affects the way that you function in life. I think it can be very exhausting to go out and pretend that you're fine and then come home and have a breakdown and not be able to take care of yourself. But I think for some people, that's how they function and it's been comfortable for them, so they don't see a reason for changing it. When it comes to high functioning depression, it can definitely have some negative connotations to it, right? When we use the term high functioning depression, it kind of minimizes the actual clinical diagnosis of depression. Why? Because you're kind of enabling the fact that, yeah, I have depression, but I can keep doing what I need to do every day, so it doesn't really matter. And I think that that's where a lot of the issue is it does matter, because it's affecting other areas, and if you don't take care of it, it's only going to get worse. Even if you're somebody who, your depression is because of your job, it's something that you've always wanted, but now that you're there, it's really taking a toll on you. But you're like, well, I can't give up on this because I told everybody I would be this, or I told myself, so I'm just going to keep it moving. And then now, as you continue in that specific role, you get more tasks, it just adds more to you, and it starts to become more stressful. So the term high functioning can be harmful because it minimizes the seriousness of depression. Depression is something that really, really affects people, in the sense of some people are not even able to take care of their homes. A lot of times you will see hoarder situations. A lot of times you'll see people who just completely given up. They don't take care of their house, and that's why they have professional cleaners will come and take care of their home. It also overlooks the impact of chronic symptoms. It perpetuates the idea that depression must be visibly disabling, which is not true. Somebody could be walking around smiling, like I just spoke about with Michelle Williams, who was able to just keep functioning in Destiny's Child. I don't know about other people, but I didn't know that. I didn't know that she was going through all those struggles, and how would we? She didn't really verbalize it. But from what we saw from her continue to perform, her getting engaged in 2017, even with the Destiny's Child splitting up in 2005, we didn't know that she was going through that stuff. And I think that that's what people tend to forget, is that, or they just don't see, is that depression isn't just a physical thing. With depression, you can, like we said, with this high functioning depression, is you can go out and do everything but still be sad and everything when you get home. It also, it kind of inflicts this unintended shame on people who don't experience the typical depressive symptoms, right? It kind of just shows people that, oh, because you are not the person that doesn't, because you're not the person who doesn't not take a shower or don't eat or whatever, then you don't really have depression. And it just creates like a negative connotation with it. I just want people to be a little bit more truthful when it comes to the depression. I don't think you need to be completely vocal about it. If that's something that you feel like you need to do, then that's fine. But if it's something that you feel like you have to work through within yourself, then you are within that right to do it. I just think that addressing it makes it better than acting like, oh, okay, well, I'm just functioning with depression, and that's fine. So it's important to at least recognize that depression, whether it's high functioning or not, can still have serious effects on somebody's mental health and physical being. We have to make sure that you're able to address these symptoms. Just to have like a quick overview, when it comes to depression, what are the typical signs that you see in just depression? Like I've said before, persistent sadness and empty mood, irritability and frustrations, loss of interest or pleasure, feeling worthless or guilty, difficulty concentrating on or making decisions, and frequent thoughts about death or suicide. Now, you might not have all of these, but I feel like if you have a couple of them and they're constantly happening, then you might want to check it out. It could be something small, but I feel like if this is something that on a regular basis that you are constantly feeling sad, you're always irritable, you have a loss of interest of something, like if you are the type of person who always like to work out and always like to do puzzles, and now all of a sudden you don't do them at all, not even once a week, on a regular basis, then that you have to have a conversation. As far as when it comes to like the physical things, a lot of times you will see people withdraw from social activities. They will decrease in productivity or performance. They just stop caring. They have changes in their sleep pattern. Either they're sleeping too much, they're sleeping 10, 12 hours a day, or they're not sleeping enough. They're only getting a couple hours of sleep. They lose interest in self-care. They don't want to take a shower. They don't care to do any of that stuff. They don't care to eat because nothing matters. They avoid a lot of situations. A lot of times they don't want to be involved in things because they don't want to deal with it. And, in some cases too, some people will start using substance use. They will use other things to kind of help them deal with it and kind of get past those pains that they're having. And also, you know, a lot of fatigue and low energy, and just changes in appetite and their weight. These are some things that you can kind of see with people who have depression. And so how do we help people who have, you know, the high functioning depression, or just in general? You have to be able to acknowledge and validate their experience, right? Be mindful of the language that you're using. Be empathetic and be non-judgmental. Like I've said before, just because somebody has money and they have access, that doesn't mean that we need to push away their experience or tell them they don't actually have depression because they have nothing to be sad about. Also, giving them support, assistance with daily tasks, encouraging self-care. You know, you can also tell someone, hey, let's go, you know, to the spa today and just go get a massage or get a facial treatment, things like that. Let's do something to be able to help. Hey, are you going to the grocery store? I'm going to the grocery store. I need to get some stuff. Come with me. We can go shopping together. I think sometimes people need to see that they have that support. So being able to do it with someone makes it a little bit more easier than trying to do it on their own. Being able to respect their space while offering for support. Sometimes people need time for themselves, but also just letting them know, hey, I'm here for you if you need me. Sometimes people need you to just give them that extra push. Not trying to fix everything, and reinforcing that it's okay to not be okay. And that's an important factor too. People need to understand that there's going to be days or times where you are sad and you don't know how to deal with things, and that's okay. But you know, there is help there, and you know, you can't fix everything, but you can get the support and the resources that you need to be able to help you as far as in that instance to make you feel better, or what you need to do moving forward. Also being able to encourage social connections, letting people know, you know, hang out with friends more, hang out with family. Don't be by yourself all the time. That only increases your depression more. And sometimes being able to just hang around with family, of course family that you get along with, can kind of help boost your mood, because you know that those are people that love and care about you, and you know that they can be there to be able to help you. And then the other thing is, you know, definitely advocating for professional help. I think sometimes people don't want to get professional help because they're worried about certain circumstances, but there does come a point where it's kind of like, okay, if you don't get the help, that is going to do you more disservice than actually getting the help. Yes, it's going to be hard. It might be a little bit embarrassing. You kind of have to deal with that. But at the end of the day, you want to be happy. We only have one life to live. You don't want to walk around and just pretend. That is exhausting within itself. So I think that being able to address depression and high functioning depression can help with the culture around it, and let people know that, okay, yeah, maybe you do have high functioning depression, but that shouldn't be a norm. You know, get the help, get the resources, be able to address things like Michelle Williams was able to do, understand that you are not alone, and then you're able to become an advocate, you know, be able to help other people that are going through it, because you want to be able to let people know that even though you may go through these struggles, you don't have to go through it forever, and you can be able to get the help and be able to overcome this thing. So I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know if there's any other topics that you would like for me to talk about, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.